practically popped out of bed. I, did my devotion time with the Lord. You know what I mean? I went and I worked out, fasted. I came back, took the dogs for the walk, did everything, settled in for work by 9. And you couldn't tell me that I wasn't living my best life then.
Yeah.
Because I was lean. I didn't have a period, so that was a problem. I didn't quite have all the symptoms yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But my morning routine looked like everybody's Instagram. Like, this is what I do in the morning. And like I was living that life, and I'm like, look at me. I can wake up at 6 with no alarm. I must be so healthy. And I was really at the least healthiest I had ever been in my life. My cholesterol started to climb due to lack of estrogen.
Hey friends, that was Ashley Smith. And she's my guest today on the Compared to show. I'm Heather Creekmore. I'm glad you're listening. Ashley is amazing. You are going to love the conversation we have today. It went so long, it went into a second episode. Let me tell you a little bit about Ashley. She is a women's holistic hormone health practitioner. She specializes in helping women heal from hypothalamic amenorrhea and restore their fertility naturally. After going through her own HA healing journey and battling the mental and emotional stronghold of seeking validation, worthiness, and praise about her body, she finally surrendered, submitted, and received what God had already spoken about her body. But friends, I expected my conversation with Ashley to be fairly technical and specific around these hormonal conditions that are sometimes connected to things we do out of our body image issues. And instead, Ashley and I had an amazing conversation where we do talk about some of those medical details, but we also just talk about body image struggles in general, our struggle with our ideals, our struggle with how we define health. There's so much good stuff in these 2 episodes. I hope you'll listen and tell a friend about them. Well, this episode is sponsored by Classical Conversations. And today I want to tell you about a brand new resource from Classical Conversations called Scribblers at Home, Recipes for Lifelong Learners. It's an at-home curricula for homeschool families with children ages 4 to 8. And it includes step-by-step activities, easy-to-follow charts that will help you cultivate a love of lifelong learning in your child through intentional everyday play. Find magic in the mundane as your kitchen becomes a classroom, your backyard becomes a laboratory, and your child develops simple learning rhythms that will carry with them through life. You can use Scribblers at Home to complement the Classical Conversations Foundations program, or just use it on its own. Either way, this new resource will help homeschool parents of little learners create a family environment where habits like playing, praying, and reading come naturally. It's coming soon in 2023. Learn more about it at classicalconversations.com/scribblers-compared to who. That's classicalconversations.com/scribblers-compared to who. Welcome to Compared to Who, the podcast to help you make peace with your body so you can savor God's rest and feel His love. If you're tired of fighting body image the world's way, Compared to Who is the show for you. You've likely heard lots of talk about loving your body, but my goal is different. Striving to fall in love with stretch marks and cellulite is a little silly to me. Instead, I want to encourage you and remind you with the truth of Scripture that you are seen, you are known, and you are loved no matter what your size or shape. Here, the pressure is off. If you're looking for real talk, biblical encouragement, and regular reminders that God loves you and you're not alone, you've come to the right place. I hope you enjoy today's show, and hey, tell a friend about it. Ashley Smith, thanks so much for being on the Compared to Who show today.
Oh, I love it. And I love your title, or like the name of this podcast, Compared to Who. I was like, ooh, that is so good. Way to get straight to the root.
Exactly. Right. Well, what you do is kind of a mouthful. Like, I've been practicing this morning saying hypothalamic amenorrhea. Did I get it right? But
yes. Like at some point it's gonna just like roll off your tongue. You're like, you know what I mean? But yes, hypothalamic amenorrhea
I was
is
close.
a mouthful. No, you're very close. And so basically it's talking about the condition of the suppressed HPO axis, which is our hypothalamus, pituitary, and our ovaries. And so that system gets suppressed and results in hypothalamic amenorrhea, which simply means, and I'll break it down, amenorrhea is a lack of cycle. You can have primary, you can have secondary. Secondary is like when you've had your period for 3 months at least. So whether you're 30, 40, 13, 16. Like you've had your cycle for at least 3 months and then it is disappeared. It is like gone, vanished. You know what I mean? There's no signs of it. And hypothalamic really just speaks to what I was talking about before of the system that's being suppressed. It's not broken. It's not permanently damaged. It is just God has designed our body in such an intricate way that there are backup mechanisms to keep us alive. And so for that, in a very twisted, weird way, and I don't expect you to count it all as joy in the beginning, eventually my clients do get to this point where they're like, don't tell anybody I said this, and I wouldn't tell this to myself, but I am thankful that I developed this because there are some things I really needed to address that cause the suppression of the hypothalamus and pituitary. But
yeah. So let me tell you my story.
Yes, please. I'm so
high school for me looked like see how long you can go without eating. And I got down to my lowest weight before I went to college because I was really worried about gaining weight in college. And I also went to college young. I was 17. Freshman year of college, I was probably refeeding is the word I would use now after high school, but I gained almost 50 pounds freshman year of college and then went home that summer, fasted as much as I could, ate as little as possible, was trying to quote unquote take the weight off before going back sophomore year. And I think I made it through September or October of sophomore year. And then my period disappeared. And I told my mom, but she had PCOS and she had always been irregular. In fact, they told her she'd never get pregnant. So my brother and I were kind of the miracles. And, so she just kind of relied on, I think, what she knew, her limited range of knowledge from her experience. And she's like, well, you're stressed and, college is stressful. And I didn't have regular periods. Now, I had always had regular periods until then, but I didn't have regular periods. So maybe you're just, doing what I did. And what I was doing food wise was I would go a couple days and try not to eat. And then, of course, refeed, then binge. And then, okay, well, I can't eat for the next couple of days and binge. And I had started exercising sophomore year too. That was the added element. And it was gone for 9 months. And then it came back and I didn't get help. I just like, well, I'm not pregnant. So I guess it'll come back when it wants to come back. And honestly, Ashley, I don't remember feeling scared about it, if I'm honest, because I wasn't like in a position where I wanted to have kids and I wasn't really thinking about my fertility. But I've shared this story in my book and I've shared it on the show a little bit, but I've had lots of women reach out to me and say, hey, like I lost my period too. Like, how'd you get yours back? And I'm like, I didn't really do anything. I need to find someone who can answer that question.
Oh my gosh. I love this.
Yeah. So what do you hear in my story and what do you hear in other people's story? Like what's going on with this?
Absolutely. And so I'm going to share a little bit of mine just so that I can give another version of what this can look like as well too. And then we can dive into both of our stories.
Awesome.
So my story, I remember always feeling bigger. Like I just had this concept that I was bigger than everybody in middle school, but I didn't really take any action on it. I was just like, well, I mean, they're kind of scrawny, you know what I mean? I feel like I still had some resiliency built up in me in middle school. And then high school, you wind up kind of going to high school with the same people that you went to middle school, and they were still much thinner. And I was like, well, maybe I confirmed bias, right? Maybe I really am just bigger than everybody else. Looking back, not you know what I mean? And I think that's really important is because I think if we rely on how we feel, we're always going to be misled because, and not because feelings are bad and not because they're not real. But one thing I like to ask my clients, but are they valid? Are they valid? Because the way you felt when you woke up this morning is not the same as the way you felt when you went to bed. So we already know outside of body image, this, our feelings shift from hour by hour, from morning to night, you know what I mean? And so I don't want to talk down on feelings because they do tend to be an indicator of what's going on. But the indicator in this case is oh, my feelings can ebb and flow and they change and they don't really need a reason to change. Sometimes there is a reason and sometimes there's not,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So circling back in, and then I went to college and I just remember I was always really strong. I also have PCOS as well, right? So thankfully, like one of the attributes is that you have more muscle mass and you tend to be able to build muscle easier. And so I have always been physically strong, but I didn't look strong. Like I think if you looked at me, you weren't like, she's really strong. But so I always felt like I didn't match up to how I felt on the inside. Like, like I wanted, quote unquote, what society tells me is a strong body is someone who's super lean with visible muscles, right? And I was like, I just need this to match up for myself. You know what I mean? So in college, I kind of started doing the over exercising. I also played D1 softball. And so exercise and working out was always part of everything I've done since I was 10. You know what I mean? Since, I played softball. So it would be like 5 games in 2 days, travel ball at the age of like 10, you know what I mean? All the way up until college to where we're traveling and playing double headers, we're waking up, we're working out. So it's never not been, but that's the first time I was like, maybe I should add a spin class. Y'all, I was working out. I had a practice for 2.5 hours and I also played outfield. So please believe I was running for 2.5 hours, lifting, then extra work. And I thought I needed an extra spin class.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I still don't see my body changing. So that's when I probably started dieting then. And it was more just like probably portion control then. So then I graduated and then I was like, I really just feel like this is one area of my life that I've not been able to be successful in. So I started macro counting. I hired a coach and I lost tons of weight. And then I wound up working for that company and I became a nutrition coach myself. And then, so that's when things really got crazy, was because for me, because the market is so saturated that I felt like I needed to stand out and be validated through my body. And I share that because you don't have to be a nutrition coach to feel validation through your body. Almost everybody does it. I'm a speaker, so I want to look a certain way. Like I can say, what does success look like to you? And you instantly have an image pop up in your head. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll say that and it's an image and it's not even me. I'm like, this is twisted. You know what I mean? Like, that's not even my hair color. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just to pinpoint that everybody has to eventually wrestle, and maybe it's a short wrestle, maybe it's nothing really big for them, but for women, I don't know very many women that have not had to do this dance with God and is being let out on the other side. You know what I mean? So that's when I really started to it wasn't just about keeping off the weight. It was like, how lean can I get? How much more muscular can I get? And not so much in the bodybuilding realm of things of like taking steroids or anything like that. But I was lean enough to be like stage ready. You know what I mean? For competitions. And I would walk around that lean because there was always another event on the calendar, on the horizon, that I wanted to, quote unquote, look my best for. And what that winds up being is year-round dieting, year after year after year, because there's always a birthday, there's always a wedding, there's always a celebration, there's always a graduation, there's always a vacation, there's always a trip, right? And so it's a very subtle way to restrict long-term over a period of years. So I wound up losing my cycle, but when I told the doctors, like, they didn't even look up from their chart. They're just like, yeah, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, the medical professionals are not concerned. You know what I mean? And at that time, I didn't know about functional nutrition, functional labs, like actual optimizing health for women, stuff like that. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was that I didn't have a cycle. I wasn't really bothered by it. Seemed kind of, like nothing was missing from my life. And my doctors didn't seem concerned. So I lost my cycle for 5 years.
Wow.
5 years. And that tends to be on the short end of my clients. The clients that I work with now, they've either lost their cycle for 10 years, 7 years, 5 years. I just had a client, she never had a cycle. So she had primary amenorrhea. But so I lost it for 5 years. And the only reason why I started to actually start looking for my cycle was because of Instagram. I know everyone gives Instagram such a bad, thing. And yes, be mindful of influencers 100%, like do your due diligence. But I really started to see functional doctors talk about the importance of ovulation.
Mm.
And at that time, I was really suffering with hair loss. And I was like, I need to get to the bottom of this.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And it come to find out that it's a lack of progesterone, which it's a hormone that we make after ovulation. I was like, well, I need to ovulate then. Like, I need to get this under control. And that led me down a spiral of learning about ovulation, hormones, the roles of estrogen and progesterone. And something that I'm really passionate about speaking about now is that in the simplicity of explaining hormones to women as if we can't understand, that's a whole other thing. We have, I think, explained estrogen and progesterone as if it only has one function in the body, when there's actually estrogen and progesterone receptors from our head to our toes. It's in our teeth. That's why our teeth shift due to pregnancy, relaxin, progesterone. You know what I mean? There's receptors in our digestion. That's why we see, I see almost every client that I work with now has massive digestive issues. Everything from being diagnosed to IBS, IBD, when it's related to a lack of estrogen and progesterone. Now, I'm not saying every single thing is this, but I work with a very niche population. And I've thankfully been able to see all those things reversed just by regaining ovulation. Everything from your skin, to your sex drive, to vaginal lubrication, you know what I mean? I'm talking about every aspect of your life, and as a woman, and as you know what I mean, just things that you don't want to tell your doctor that like you can't poop, or that you're, like all these things. You don't want to tell your doctor that like, hey, I am like so dry that sex is hurting. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to tell your doctor that your hair is falling out. You know what I mean? And on top of these things, basically what happens with hypothalamic amenorrhea, you are not in menopause, so I'm very clear, but you are put into a menopause state. It mimics it very closely. You know what I mean? Where menopause is not reversible and it's a natural part of life. You know what I mean? Not saying that it's great, So there's that.
Yeah, I'm coming up on it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I get it.
Like, I had everything from hot flashes. I was drenched. I was 30 years old, drenching my shirt.
Yeah.
Because of my hot flashes. My anxiety was horrendous at night. I was wired and tired. My cortisol was through the roof because I couldn't clear it because my thyroid had slowed down, because your thyroid is not broken and your metabolism is not broken. Your body is incredibly smart. And so when you reduce your food intake, your thyroid gets down regulated to conserve energy. And that's why you don't die. That's why you didn't die from 3 days of trying to fast, right?
Yeah.
Although, we're getting pretty close. I'm not saying to death, but I'm saying that, 3 days is kind of really intense. Granted, there's people who do 5-day fast. Absolutely. Yeah. But to do that for a lifetime is really intense on the system. Very intense. So my cortisol was shooting through the roof, and I just made a post about it, is that I felt like $1,000,000 in the morning. I woke up, my eyes opened up at 6. I practically popped out of bed. I, did my devotion time with the Lord. You know what I mean? I went and I worked out, fasted. I came back, took the dogs for the walk, did everything, settled in for work by 9. And you couldn't tell me that I wasn't living my best life then.
Yeah.
Because I was lean. I didn't have a period, so that wasn't a problem. I didn't quite have all the symptoms yet. You know what I mean? But my morning routine looked like everybody's Instagram. Like, this is what I do in the morning. And I was living that life, and I'm like, look at me. I can wake up at 6 with no alarm. I must be so healthy. And I was really at the least healthiest I had ever been in my life. My cholesterol started to climb due to lack of estrogen. That's something that people don't realize. You're like LDL. So estrogen is the great regulator throughout your body. It regulates your insulin sensitivity. It regulates your cholesterol, all these things. So this is what women in menopause start to see. And then, but because of our age, whenever you develop HA, you can go to a doctor, and unfortunately they're mostly concerned about not missing PCOS, that they don't know about HA. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that'll change hopefully within the next 10 years. You know what I mean? But a lot of my clients have been referred out to multiple different doctors, not knowing that it's all connected.
Yeah.
Because for female, well, people, humans, you know what I mean? It is all connected. So I know I went on a tangent.
No, that was really good. Hey, let me jump in and ask you a question quickly
Yeah.
about that before I forget. So I'm hearing a lot of women late 30s that are being told that they're in perimenopause, and
Yes.
I was researching for a book I just wrote, like, when does perimenopause start, and finding all these articles about perimenopause starting like late 30s. So is maybe the truth that they're actually in some sort of HA state and
Yes.
being diagnosed that way, because it shouldn't
They
start at
told me
38, right?
They told me at 28 that I was in early menopause and I had
28.
ovarian insufficiency and that I was just barren.
Hmm.
And so like, I mean, I would love to share the God version of this entire
Yeah.
story as well too.
Yeah.
And they basically told me that I was barren. That and so I didn't want to have kids then. I mean, the Lord has done so much in my life in terms of what is in my life that I would have never chosen for myself. Like I would have never chosen this job, but my goodness, I can't imagine doing anything else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I never wanted to have kids. So for me, like there wasn't a drive. So I work in HA and fertility spaces, right? The Lord has just put on my heart this passion for women who want to have kids, even though I I don't feel that same intense passion. But what I am passionate about is that they have been told a lie and that they are living a life not of freedom that the Lord has for them
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
many ways. Body image,
Yeah.
um, version of health, people pleasing, just all the things that lead to this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that entrapment is really what I'm after. That's what I'm really passionate about. But what happens to be the result is the Lord using me to help women get pregnant naturally. And it's not
Yeah.
because I have some formula. It's through, so like I biblically counsel my clients because I am certified in biblical counseling. I don't have a degree in it, so I don't want anyone to feel, confused about it. But the way that the Lord has positioned me to minister to women and to see that he wants to heal more than just your desire to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not withholding that from you, but there's so much more that he has for you
Yeah.
that I'm like, how can I not be a part of this? Like,
Yeah.
yes, Lord, I will be the vessel. I'm, you know what I mean? Type of thing of like, I can't imagine anything. But I was told that I was barren. I was told that I have ovarian insufficiency. So early menopause. And I'm like, I'm 28. I was just cycling 5 years ago. What are you talking
Mm-hmm.
about? So there's something in me where I would not agree with that diagnosis.
Yeah.
Not because I knew better and not because I knew what I knew now, because I didn't. You know what I mean? I eventually got the diagnosis of HA, but she didn't really even tell me what it is. She basically said, that's the category that we put people in when we don't know what is going on and there's nothing you can do about it. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
sitting there and be like, spent years on testing and we had everything tested. I mean, so I'll thank her for that. We had my like brain because it must be a pituitary tumor.
Mm-hmm.
I do have it's like one of those micro small, and it's just like a little bit of inflammation, but it's not stopping anything. It's not dangerous. It's not anything. It's just randomly. I had my DNA tested, my genetics tested to see if my chromosomes were messed up. You know what I mean? I've had every test done. I had SIBO testing for my gut because my gut wound up getting so bad. When I say so bad, I went from having no issues with any types of food to then having some like food intolerances, which then led to further restriction. And that
Mm-hmm.
did take care of it for about a year. I mean, like it did take care of it. And then my body just, I mean, I was down to like 4 foods. And even
Mm-hmm.
then I would literally eat and bloat up
Mm-hmm.
instantly. I feel like I watched my lower stomach become pregnant
Yeah.
because I was bloated so much that I'm like, this can't be real, And at that time, I was a nutrition coach, and I was like, I know this isn't normal. I coach
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of women, and I've like, this is not the things that I'm seeing. Like, this is not normal. So yes, we work with a lot of women who have been told that they have uh early menopause, or we work more with women now also who have tried IUI or IVF and been unsuccessful.
Mm.
And they work with us and they are able to get pregnant naturally.
That's wonderful.
So that's even just a wild portion of being able to really work with somebody who it's been spoken over their life that they are barren and they are infertile and that there is something wrong with their body and they can't do it. And when I look at their labs, I'm like, this is HA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thankfully now IVF, I have one client, she went to her IVF clinic. We stopped working together because we were at an impasse, and coaching is about being available whenever they're ready to come back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't make me go down a certain path, even if you tried in my journey. Like, I'm just way too stubborn, right? I have to learn it for myself, unfortunately. And so she really believed that she had PCOS. I'm not saying that she doesn't have PCOS, but I also work with women who have HA and PCOS, and they are able to get pregnant. And so thankfully she's been able to come back, and she's like, Ashley, I feel so silly. It was really HA all along. And it was really everything that you had been telling me. And so I just went back to our notes and I went back to the tweaks that you had me do with my food. And now I'm pregnant.
Wow.
You know what I mean? After failed IUI, you know what I mean? And getting ready to do IVF, and her IVF doctor thankfully was like, this is HA. Yeah. This is not going to work unless this is resolved. And I think that was one of the things that led her to circle back to just the work that we had done. And now, like, we're in communication and just celebrating with her, you know what I mean? And so it's just been really wild to the women that have been told that they are barren and they have a strong passion. They're like, no, I know I'm supposed to be a mom. I know I am. And I'm like, I believe you.
Yeah.
There's some things that we got to work on, but I believe you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, just people in my own life that have not been successful getting pregnant and gone the IVF route and had it fail. And knowing what I know now, and again, like you said, like, people have to be ready to to hear the truth around their own journey, but thinking about how they were intentionally trying to restrict or exercise more, because if I get pregnant, then I'm going to gain weight. So I have to make sure that I'm ready to gain weight and ready to have my body change. And it's like, oh, but I think you're working against yourself there.
It's very intense. And yes. And so very much similar of, you know, I know that we're concerned about getting our body ready to gain weight. I'm not going to discredit that that is a thought that women have, but my clients who thankfully have at least reached out and agreed to work, right? You know, to work on this. I say more of, if your body has deemed your situation not safe enough to ovulate due to stress, which encompasses nutritional stress. So I'm going to get slightly nerdy, but I think this is really important because I think people can like dismiss this, and I would have. I needed to know the why. I need to know the why chick, you know what I mean? So on your hypothalamus, the first part of this domino, sits a hormone called leptin, and your leptin tells your body your nutritional status. This isn't whether you've had carrots or not. This is, do you have enough energy to send the first message down to your pituitary? And then leptin sits on your pituitary and he's like, do we have enough energy? So each way there's this gate to make sure that you have enough energy coming in, because if I let you ovulate, there is a chance that this is going to lead to pregnancy and breastfeeding, and you have to have enough coming in order to support that. So that's where we see the first thing is like the leptin gate, that I will call it, that sits on the hypothalamus. If you have enough coming in, it'll open up and you can go to the pituitary. The pituitary has a leptin gate as well. If you have enough, it'll open up and then it'll send the FSH. And then you also have a leptin gate on your ovaries, right? Meaning that your body is so smart that if it does not sense enough energy coming in, it will not allow this to happen. Now, what I love about your title and about what we do compared to who, a lot of times we'll say, no, I know someone who's leaner and who has gotten pregnant. I know someone who is leaner who dieted. I know someone who's leaner. And I say, you are right. They are. But that is not your situation, and your body will not allow it. So we can keep comparing, or we can accept that your body is not going to allow it to happen under these conditions. And so now we have to choose. We have to choose your version of what is beautiful, or you get to choose having a baby. And I know that's so intense and it's so harsh, but to entertain any other thought is not kind or compassionate, because I'm allowing you to entertain another option that's never going to produce what you want it to produce. And so in love, I have to present these two options. You can either continue to chase worth, validation, love, and connection through your body, or you can agree with God about who he says you are and allow him to usher you through this transition and get pregnant. But this is a fork in the road, and I will go down any path you want to go down, and it's always going to be a safe place. But this is the choice point, and there is no middle, or else you would have achieved it already, because I don't believe that you are here for a lack of trying.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Ashley, I'm loving this conversation so much. I can't wait to continue it in next week's episode. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for listening. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. If you want to connect with Ashley right away, if something about HA or infertility or loss of a cycle, if something like that has resonated with you today, go to thehasociety.com and you can learn more about Ashley. The Compared to podcast is proud to be part of the Life Audio network of podcasts. Check out lifeaudio.com for so much great content. You will not believe the awesome podcast there. So go check that out, lifeaudio.com. Oh, hey there, before you go, if something from today's show blessed you, may I ask a huge favor? Leave a review on your favorite platform. Seeing your 5-star reviews is a huge encouragement to me. Not sure how to do it? You can go to comparedtowho.me/podcast, scroll to the bottom, and you'll find all the information. And while you're at comparedtowho.me, check out some of the more than 500 articles on there about body image, comparison, all the things you're thinking about. Plus, you can find out more about my books, or you can grab a time for a free 10-minute call to see if coaching is right for you. I'm so honored to be a part of your journey out of body image and comparison frustration, and I can't wait to hear how God is working to set you free.